Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the shift in energy? You noticed who looked away too quickly, who smiled but didn't mean it, and who was pretending to be okay when they clearly weren't. While everyone else was just existing in that room, you were reading it like a book. If that sounds familiar, you might be one of the rare people who are almost painfully aware. And I say painfully because that's often exactly what it is. There's a psychological concept called hyper-awareness, and it goes far deeper than just being observant. People who live in this state don't just notice things, they process everything, every micro-expression, every change in tone, every word that wasn't said. Their brain is essentially running a constant background program that most people don't even know exists. But here's what nobody talks about. This level of awareness doesn't come from nowhere. Research in developmental psychology consistently shows that hyper-awareness is often born in environments where being tuned in was a matter of emotional survival. Maybe you grew up in a home where the mood could shift without warning, so you learned to read the signs early. You became an expert at detecting tension before it erupted. You learned to adapt before anyone even asked you to. That skill kept you safe, but you never turned it off. And now, as an adult, that same radar runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether you need it or not. People who are too aware often carry something called cognitive overload. Their brain is processing layers of social information simultaneously that most people never even register. When someone speaks to them, they're not just hearing the words. They're analyzing the tone, the timing, the body language, the history behind the relationship, and what the person probably isn't saying. By the time the average person has processed a simple sentence, the hyper-aware person has already run 5 different interpretations through their mind. This is exhausting in a way that's almost impossible to explain to someone who doesn't experience it. And this is where it gets really interesting from a psychological standpoint. Studies on what's called sensory processing sensitivity, a trait identified by psychologist Elaine Aron, found that highly sensitive and highly aware individuals actually have measurably different brain activity. Specifically, their brains show stronger activation in areas linked to awareness, empathy, and emotional processing. It is literally neurological. This isn't overthinking. This isn't a flaw. This is a different way of being wired. But that doesn't make it easy. People who are too aware often struggle deeply with relationships. Not because they don't care, but because they care too much and they see too much. They notice the slight hesitation before someone says, "I'm fine." They catch the flicker of annoyance someone tried to hide. They feel the emotional undercurrents in a conversation that the other person isn't even consciously aware of themselves. And often they don't say anything, because they've learned that pointing out what you see tends to make people uncomfortable, so they hold it. They carry the weight of unspoken truths in silence. There's also a deeply complicated relationship with their own minds, because when your awareness is turned outward all the time, it's also turned inward. Hyper-aware people are often their own harshest critics. They replay conversations. They analyze their own reactions. They question their intentions, wonder if they said the right thing, and sometimes spiral into what psychologists call rumination, that relentless mental loop that just won't stop. And yet there is a profound gift hidden inside all of this. People who are too aware possess a depth of empathy that is genuinely rare. They are the ones who notice when someone is quietly struggling before anyone else does. They're the friend who shows up not because you called, but because they felt something was off. They're the ones who ask the question that cuts right to the heart of what's really going on. They create space for people to be real, because they themselves have always been allergic to the surface level. They also tend to be exceptionally creative, intuitive, and emotionally intelligent. They see connections others miss. They understand human behavior with a nuance that takes most people decades of therapy to even begin to grasp. The challenge for these people is not to become less aware. That's not possible, and honestly, it would be a loss for everyone around them. The real psychological work is learning to choose where that awareness goes, learning to protect their own energy with the same intensity they give to understanding others, learning to recognize that not every signal needs a response. Not every room needs to be read. Not every silence holds a hidden meaning that must be decoded. Because if you are someone who is too aware, let me say something directly to you. You are not too sensitive. You are not too much. You are not broken for feeling the world this deeply. You were built for depth. And the world, whether it admits it or not, desperately needs people like you. The key is learning to live in that awareness without drowning in it, to observe without absorbing, to care without losing yourself. That is the real psychological journey for the people who feel and see everything. And if you made it to the end of this video, chances are you already know exactly what I'm talking about.